Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's Court Chatter Live. So glad that you could join me. I am Kathy Russin from courtchatter.com, and this is our weekly, bi-weekly, whenever broadcast that we like to do to talk about the cases that we're covering on Court Chatter that we're watching. Courtchatter.com is a website where we live stream trials and hearings, where we keep you updated on the cases that you're interested in, that you're watching and reading in the news, court cases, criminal cases, high profile cases, and we watch them when they show up in court, or if they're not live streamed, then we post articles about them, we talk about them, we have a chat room. You can chat in real time while you're watching the cases. So I like to do this show where we can just talk about what we have been watching for the last week, what we can expect to see coming up. This is live streaming on YouTube, and if you're watching it now, there's a chat box off to the right-hand side of the screen, and you can ask me questions during the show. You can chat with each other. You can just make comments that I can read on air. If you catch this later on in the archives, there's a comment box below the screen, and I'll check in from time to time during the week and comment back with you. You can watch these shows anytime on the Court Chatter YouTube channel. We have another YouTube channel called Court Chatter View, and that is where we archive all of the trials and hearings that you watch on Court Chatter, so you can watch them in your own time whenever you want to. Okay, so what we're going to talk about this week, I have three cases that I want to cover. Hulk Hogan versus Gawker. I didn't really want to cover it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm going to because it really has made national news, and everybody from CNN to Good Morning America to The View, everybody's talking about it. Dalia Dippolito, we've talked about her before, but there was a hearing this week, and I just want to update you on it. And then I want to talk about the Vanderbilt University rape retrial that's going to be coming up. So those are the three cases we're going to cover this week. However, how can I not start the show off this week without mentioning the man in the tree? Now look, if you follow me at all, you know that I was a little obsessed with the man in the tree. If you don't know anything about the man in the tree, then I'm sorry, because you missed out on the man in the tree. So Seattle has, in downtown Seattle, in front of the Macy's store, there's an 80-foot sequoia tree. It's this iconic tree that was transplanted as an adult tree there in the 1970s. And then it's grown, it's 80 feet tall now. And they decorated at Christmas time, and it's just a huge tree. And this week, a guy decided to climb the tree to the top of the 80-foot tree and sit there. No one knows why. He wasn't making a statement. He wasn't standing for something. This wasn't to conserve trees. He was a man in a tree. The fire department showed up to rescue him, but he didn't want to be rescued. Police department was there. The media shows up. So in response, he had some apples, so he chucked apples at them. He threw pine cones at them. He screamed obscenities at them. He showed them his middle finger from time to time. He didn't want to be rescued, and he wanted to be left alone, and he wanted to be in a tree in the middle of downtown Seattle on apparently a very busy street that commuters have to use to get where they need to be in downtown Seattle. And here he was in a tree. I have to show you a picture of the man in a tree. Okay, so there he is on the right. There's a firefighter up on the ladder saying, look, can you come down? And he's like, no, I'm a man in a tree, and here I'm going to stay. So when it started, the poor tree had all its limbs, but the man in the tree started destroying the tree. And as hours went by, he started taking those limbs and chucking them down at firefighters and policemen. And pretty soon the tree was pretty bare, probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 feet above him. Then as maybe 10 hours into his vigil up there, he started taking branches off and making himself a bed because I guess it was getting pretty uncomfortable. I'll take that down. So the man in the tree was in the tree for 24 hours. The media was there, and the local station there, KOMO, live streamed it for 24 hours. And I think I watched it for like 18 of that 24 hours. Yes, I'm telling you right now and admitting to you that I was obsessed with the man in the tree. It had a hashtag on Twitter, man in tree. There was a parody account made of man in tree. And my chat room was obsessed with the man in the tree. I have to look at what you guys are saying. Hashtag destructive man in tree. Yeah. So some people were starting to get upset when he was destroying this iconic tree. Most of us, however, although it was kind of entertaining and fun, knew that there was probably mental illness involved here. And maybe the guy's homeless. So, you know, there's a bigger discussion to be had here. Seattle has a real homeless problem. And then society in general, we have a mental illness discussion that needs to be had. So we did feel for the guy, but they couldn't get him down. And what do? You can't hose him down. You're not going to tranquilize him like a bear. And so it went on and on and on and on and on. And they needed, police and firefighters needed to stay there. They couldn't just leave him alone because he's in the middle of downtown Seattle and he's 80 feet up. That's dangerous. If he falls, that's dangerous. It's dangerous to the people. It's dangerous to him. So that was the 24-hour thing that happened this week that was live streamed that we all watched. And then really out of nowhere, he came down. We don't know what made the decision, but he came down. They put him on a stretcher. They took him to the hospital to be evaluated. And then the reason I can talk about it on Court Chatter Live and bring this all round, they ended up charging the guy with malicious, what'd they charge him with? Malicious, mischievous, and now I can't think. See, I got too involved in the man in the tree. So they ended up charging him. And right before we went on air, he had his first appearance in court, and he refused to come to court. He wouldn't walk out in court, and the judge held it over for tomorrow. So now he won't come out in court. So obviously there's some issues there. But now he's part of Court Chatter. So there you go, the man in the tree. Okay, let's talk about some cases here. Let me see what you guys are saying in chat. Linda, he came down 15 minutes after I left for a meeting. Yeah, I know. We all were pretty invested in the man in the tree. I know, it's a sickness. I tweeted out that I needed an intervention because I was pretty heavily involved in the man in the tree. Oh, Linda Abby wants to know if the tree will be saved. So they did get it as soon as they got him in an ambulance and took him away. They had an arborist there, like within minutes. Like there was an arborist there, and they were up there immediately looking at the tree. And there seems to be no problem, even though he kind of destroyed all the branches. A good part of the top of that tree. There seems to be no problem. And the tree will be fine. And I know it'll just take forever, I guess, for the top of that tree to grow back, but the tree, I guess, is going to be fine. So, that's good news because it's a pretty iconic tree. All right. Jan says now he's up a creek without a paddle. Yeah. Okay. Man in a tree. If it's live streamed, we'll watch it. That's the sad thing. We've been known to watch a sinkhole. Sometimes when there's not any court cases, it's what happens on courtchatter.com. Now let's talk about court cases. Okay, first we're going to talk about, I'll pull up my notes here. Hulk Hogan. Okay, I'm just going to say up front, Mom, if you're watching, you might want to just turn this off for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, we all know who Hulk Hogan is, right? So here's the iconic Hulk Hogan that we know from, maybe we all know, from our childhoods. Okay, there he is, Hulk Hogan, the wrestler, entertainer, WWE, WWF, Hulkamania, whatever all those things are, right? That he was on. There's Hulk Hogan. Okay, but this last couple of weeks, this was Hulk Hogan. Whoops, no, I lost it. Hang on. All right. So Hulk Hogan was in a courtroom. And yes, he was allowed to wear a bandana in a courtroom. I had so many questions about that during this trial. In a pretrial hearing, his attorney asked the judge, and the judge allowed it. So that's why he was wearing a bandana all through this trial. Okay. So here's the thing. This was a civil trial. Hulk Hogan versus Gawker. And Hulk Hogan's real name is Terry Bollea, but so maybe I live under a rock. I don't know. But until this trial, I had never heard of Gawker. And I mean, it wasn't this trial the past couple weeks. They've had many pretrial hearings going on for a very long time. So I've heard of Gawker throughout the pretrial hearings. But before this case, I had never heard of Gawker. Maybe it's just because it's not my cup of tea. I don't know, because many people had heard of Gawker, but I had never heard of Gawker. So Gawker is an online publication. And there are several, like 7 companies involved here, .coms, owned by the same guy, all different things. There's like Jezebel.com, and they focus on women's issues. And there's one that's focused on the latest technical gadgets. And there's one focused on automotive and all different things. But the Gawker part of this large entity, Gawker.com, is tabloidish, National Enquirer-ish, I guess, like that, okay? I guess they started out by reporting on New York media and how New York media reported on things, something like that, and then they branched out. So this is what happened, and I'll just try to report this as delicately as I can. You know, I don't like to report. I don't like to get slimy. So Hulk Hogan's best friend, this gets crazy, was Bubba the Love Sponge. And believe it or not, I know who Bubba the Love Sponge is. And that's only because Bubba the Love Sponge has had several civil lawsuits against him. And his legal name is Bubba the Love Sponge. He's had it changed to that. He is a radio shock jock. And you guys know what that means. One of the most famous ones is Howard Stern. So there are these radio DJs that, you know, do things for shock value. He's based out of Florida. So if you live in Florida, you know who Bubba the Love Sponge is. And him and Hulk Hogan are best friends. Apparently, Bubba is okay with his wife having sex with other people and endorses it and says, here, take her. I don't know. I guess there are people that live like that. So he offers his wife up to Hulk Hogan, who says, okay. So this happens in Bubba's house, in Bubba's bedroom. And there happens to be a camera rolling because Bubba has a camera in his bedroom. And Hulk Hogan doesn't know he's being filmed. Now, there were people that thought Hulk Hogan did know he was being filmed. However, now we've seen some text messages that came out between Bubba and Hulk Hogan that I think we can kind of agree that Hulk didn't know he was being filmed. Okay? So, the relations were caught on camera. And then that tape got leaked out, and Gawker.com published a portion of it. Okay, so that's how we get to the civil lawsuit. That's how we end up in court. This case is way more convoluted than that, and there's a lot more to it than that. But that's been this trial that's gone on for the last few weeks. Wow, is there way more to this case, though? So this jury, there's only 6 members of the jury. When there's a civil trial, they only require 6 in Florida. heard this case. Hulk Hogan got on the stand, talked about how emotionally distressing this was. Gawker had only shown, they showed, I think, I don't know, 9 minutes of the 30-minute video, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but only 9 seconds of it was the actual act. And then the rest was just them talking and him answering a phone and some other things. And the article that they'd written with it was all about celebrity sex videos. And I don't know. That's how, and Gawker's whole thing was First Amendment rights, freedom of the press. And the whole case was right of privacy versus freedom of the press. That's what this whole case was about. And when has it gone too far? When does the press, when does the freedom of the press go too far? And when are your rights, when is your privacy rights violated? And does a celebrity give up their right to privacy? So that's why this case was interesting to a lot of people. And it wasn't just about celebrity sex tapes. That's why this case got a lot of attention. So the Gawker's president and founder, I'll quickly put up a picture of him, Nick Denton, who, by the way, is a highly educated man. I think he went to Oxford. He was a journalist at very prestigious companies early on in his career, and reported in war-torn countries. And he was on the stand and gave his whole background. It went on and on and on. And I was shocked at his background, knowing of what he's created now at these. I'll probably get some hate mail about this, but for me, it's trashy. It's trashy journalism. Some people like it. It's not my thing. Okay, but he has some great credentials behind him. And so he got on the stand too, and he 100% defends the publishing of this video. And when Hogan and his attorney sent them a cease and desist letter to take it down immediately, he refused. He refused, calling it newsworthy. He said it was newsworthy. And they showed Hogan's body part, okay, calling that newsworthy. I don't know what planet that's newsworthy, but he defends that and says it's newsworthy. Well, to make a long story short, the jury came back saying it's not newsworthy, and the jury hit him. So Hogan sued for $100 million, which we're all like, that's ridiculous, right? $100 million. The jury came back and awarded $115 million to Hogan. They awarded $60 million for emotional distress and $55 million in economic injuries. Now, those were the actual damages. Then they went into a punitive phase, and they awarded him another $25 million in punitive damages. So that is how much this jury hit Gawker. If this were to hold up in an appeals court, and that's a whole different story, this would put Gawker out of business. And that's the message the jury just sent. This jury is saying you can't publish whatever you want. It's not right to just publish whatever the heck you want to publish. Now, on Gawker's end, they're saying this is never going to hold up in an appeals court. The judge in the case sealed a bunch of records and didn't let the jury see very important parts of this case. That the appeals court is going to turn this case over. And a very interesting part of what happened in this case is while the jury was deliberating, the appeals court unsealed a bunch of documents that the trial judge had sealed earlier in the case. And we all got to start reading these documents that have been sealed that the jury will never see. And they were text messages between Hogan and Bubba. They were interviews with the FBI, because the FBI started investigating this case. And what now we start to see was that it looks like Hogan was never worried about the public seeing him having sex with somebody. That wasn't ever his main concern. It looks like there's multiple tapes from that incident, I guess. And it looks like on one of the tapes, he is on kind of a rant and he's using racial slurs. And his concern is somebody was going to publish that, and that was going to destroy his career. And that was his main concern. And Gawker never published that. So they wanted that to get in front of the jury, which the judge sealed and didn't allow in front of the jury. So that's Gawker's main contention here, is that what Hogan said on the stand about how much emotional distress this caused him by showing him having sex wasn't the truth, that he was lying, that didn't cause him any stress. That wasn't his concern. Okay. Gawker's convinced, they are very confident this is going to be overturned in the appeals court, and they are not going to ever have to pay up. So that's what happened with this case. Look, I agree they shouldn't be able to publish whatever they want. I agree, on one hand, celebrities do put themselves out there more than just regular everyday people. But I also agree that what happens in the privacy of a bedroom, when they didn't purposely tape themselves, you know, that they were taped in secret, that's not right. That's not right. It's not right to be published. It's my opinion. All right, see if you guys have anything to say about this before I move on. Anything? Yeah. Oh, well, what a lot of us said before those records were unsealed, and the scuttlebutt was, some people thought Hogan knew he was being filmed all along. Some people thought Hogan and Bubba were in on this together to get Gawker to pay money. So Hogan knew it was being filmed and they were going to do this together. You know, there were all these conspiracy theories out there about this. I said, and a lot of people in the chat room said, there's no way Hogan knew it was being filmed, because it wasn't, not that we didn't see the video, but you saw clips. It was all blurry and grainy, but you saw clips that weren't the bad parts, okay? But what we heard about it wasn't very flattering to Hogan. So it was almost like if he knew he was being filmed, he'd acted the part better. So that's kind of what you guys are saying right now in the chat room. So you kind of knew that Hogan never knew he was being filmed. And now when you see text messages that went on between Hogan and Bubba, right when Hogan knew the tape had gotten out there, you see him saying, why didn't you didn't tell me I was being filmed? And you see that going back and forth. So you really know that he didn't know he was being filmed. Oh, question. John says, what goes with the tape now? I mean, what happens with the tape now? The judge sealed it. So after the verdict, the trial judge sealed the tape. So that means nobody can get their hands on it, unless it gets leaked out. I don't know. That's what happened after the verdict, though. Okay, let's move. Let me quickly go Dalia Dippolito. If you're not familiar with the case, I did a show a couple weeks back. You can look on this YouTube channel, and it's in the title, Dalia Dippolito. And I went into more depth with it there. I won't take the time to do that in today's show. It's a murder for hire trial. She tried to hire someone to kill her husband. Most of you know the case because it was an episode of Cops, which makes the case interesting. It was back in 2009. She talked to her former lover and asked him to find someone to kill her husband. The former lover was worried about that, and he went to the cops. So the cops set up a sting, but they contacted the TV show Cops and said, hey, I think we have a good case. Do you want to come film it? And that's how that happened. So they set this whole thing up, and then they secretly videoed her meeting with an undercover cop pretending to be the hitman. And then they set up the hit on her husband and did it all in front of her house, where because she was going to be gone to the gym. So when she came back, she thought her husband was really killed. So she had her whole acting part on, and it was all filmed for the show Cops. And then she acted like, oh no, he's dead. And they're like, yeah, but he's not, and you're under arrest. And they arrested her on the spot. And then her defense was, no, me and my husband and my former lover, we're all in on this together. We're all actors, and we're trying to pitch a reality show. So we set this whole thing up. It was all scripted. And a jury in 2011 didn't buy that. They convicted her to solicit murder and sentenced her to 20 years. She got out on bail under house arrest while her appeal was pending on that. And an appeals court gave her a new trial because they said the judge erred by not allowing her defense team to individually question jurors about the media hype in that case. They were allowed to question them about that, but in small groups. And the appeals court said they should have been allowed to individually question. So she gets a new trial. That's where we're at. And her trial's coming up in May. So there's been a few hearings going on. Well, they were back in court this week because last month they had a big hearing where the defense wants the judge to throw the charges out completely. Dalia testified. We have that hearing on our Court Chatter View YouTube channel. And after that hearing last month, her attorneys went out and held a press conference. Those attorneys love to do that. They love to be in front of the media. And one of her attorneys was very passionate. And this is what he said, because this is what the hearing was about this week. I'm going to quote it verbatim. He gets out in front of the media and says, if the judge follows the law, the motion must be granted, the motion to dismiss the charges. If the judge follows the sensational nature of the videos or the drama of the videos or bows to public pressure, the judge is likely to deny the motion. Well, guess what? Judge Kelly was not happy that the attorney said that, and he hauled him into court. So she has 3 attorneys, and 2 are based in Florida. Their case is in Florida. But one attorney, which is this one that said that, Brian Claypool, is based out of California. And he's not licensed to practice in Florida, but he's been given special permission by the judge to be on her case, which can happen. And the judge hauled him in and wanted to throw him off the case. And he said, I consider that to be a violation of the rules of professional conduct. That he went out to the media and basically questioned the judge, questioned his ethics, questioned that the judge would bow to public pressure in a ruling. We see defense attorneys make statements, these kind of statements all the time. And the judge finally called one on it. And I actually really like that a lot. I like that judge a lot. So the hearing this week was twofold. The other thing was, at the last hearing, the judge made a comment about Dalia has been on house arrest this whole time, and she is only allowed to go visit her attorneys in Miami-Dade, which apparently is a lot further from where she lives, to discuss trial strategy. But she did a 2020 special at the end of last year, which some of you may have seen. She had that filmed at her attorney's office in Miami-Dade, Mark Eglarsh's office. The judge made some comment about that and about how is that trial strategy, something like that. The prosecutors picked up on that, and they immediately filed a motion after the last hearing to revoke her bail as a violation. So that also was discussed. So the first thing the judge brought up at this hearing was the comments that Brian Claypool made after the hearing about him, and why should he leave him on this case? So with his tail between his legs, Claypool got up there and apologized and said that emotions are running high and that hearing was very emotional, that Dalia had testified all that time for the first time, and that, excuse me, he apologized and said he didn't mean to question the judge's integrity. He went on and on. So the judge said he accepted his apology and he left him on the case. So that was that. Then about the bail. So Mark Eglarsh got up and kind of fell on the sword, which is funny because he said to the judge exactly, I'm not up here to say we're falling on the sword for our client, because I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to fall on the sword. So he said that, sorry, I'm trying to say it with a straight face. The 2020 interview was part of trial strategy. That allowing Dalia to do that interview allowed him to watch her tell her story on 2020, which was like her, that was allowing him to know what she would say if she testified. And then that way he could discuss it with her afterwards. So that was like trial strategy. And the judge goes, I'm not buying that is trial strategy. I'll just be quite frank with you. I really like this judge a lot. But in the end, the judge says, I do believe that this was a violation of the bail rules. And I thought, oh, he's going to revoke it. She's going to jail. And he said, however, this is the first violation in all this time she's been out. And he believes that she believed her attorneys had, her attorneys said, yes, you can do this. So what he did was he kind of hit her up and gave her a punishment for it. So she is no longer allowed to travel to Miami-Dade to go to Iglar's office. So she has 2 Florida attorneys, and the other one is in her town. And so that's the only place she's allowed to meet with attorneys. So now Iglar's has to travel to her to meet. So that's the punishment for that. So that's what happened in Dippolito's hearing this week. Her retrial is in May. And I will look to see if we have any questions. Not seeing any. Linda Abbey says, let's see. I lost a lot of respect for Judge Kelly. Oh, because he didn't revoke her bail? I understand why he didn't. You could look at it as if, when your attorneys are saying, no, this is not a violation of your bail agreement to come here. I mean, I know you're responsible for yourself, but I would kind of believe my attorneys, right? So I can see, and she had never violated, and she's been out for a long time, for years. So I can kind of see where he split the baby and just gave her a punishment. And I do like actually some things that he said in that hearing, calling out the attorney and also saying to Iglar's, I don't believe it was trial strategy. He kind of called them on the carpet. You don't see a lot of judges do that. So, I like him. Linda Abbey, I don't understand why the judge didn't revoke her bail. Not sending a good message. Well, I do think a lot of us just want to see her spend some time in jail. I think that's part of this, right? Like, she's kind of privileged. I kind of think that too. She hasn't really spending time in jail. She was convicted of trying to kill her husband. If her former lover hadn't have gone to the police, her husband would probably be dead right now. And she hasn't had to spend time. I think I figured it out last time we talked about this, and it was like May to September. So whatever, what is that, 4 months? I think she has spent 4 months in jail total for trying to get her husband killed. She is insistent that this was all scripted to get a reality TV show. Crap. That's a bunch of crap. Linda Abbey says her attorney should have been sanctioned. Jan John says, I know Claypool knew better. Yeah, saying that after in the press conference. All right. Yeah. Well, yeah, Linda Abbey says the judge in the Owen Libri case revoked bail. So what's the difference, right? And he did, but Owen Libri violated his bail conditions 8 times. 8 times. So I think that is a big difference if you look at it that way. He was acting privileged, like, I'll just do what I want. 8 times is different than once. All right. I think we just want to, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself. It's really, really easy to dislike her. Really easy for me to dislike her. And I would have liked to see her revoked. I mean, go spend some time in jail. You've been convicted of the crime. Yes, I know it's been thrown out and you're going to get a new trial, but I watched the whole trial. So I don't have to keep an open mind anymore. I know all the evidence. I don't know what new evidence they're going to pull out of their hats. All right. Okay, Vanderbilt University rape trial. I will act for a minute like you all don't know what this trial is about because, you know, some of you might not. Okay, Vanderbilt University football players. Get you some dates here. In June of 2013, a bunch of football players got really super drunk. And one of them had a date that night. Now, sometimes they call this girl his girlfriend, but it turns out they didn't really even know each other that well. So they hadn't even, they had really just met. So this girl is also really super drunk. And they head back to the dorms, and she's passed out in the car. And surveillance cameras show I'll give you some names, Brandon Vandenberg and Corey Beatty kind of drag her in to the dorms from the car. And you can see that happening on surveillance video. And then in the hallway, they stop to take some pictures of her because her skirt's kind of up. So yeah, it's nice. Then they get her into a room and they violate her with some help of a bunch of other drunk football players. And they violate her with objects, with a water bottle, fingers. One of them urinates on her. They film it, video, take pictures. They're texting friends outside of the dorms during this. The guy that's with her, Brandon Vandenberg, that night, that's dating her, is the one filming it. He doesn't really actually do anything to her that night, but he's filming it all, and he's texting with a buddy, and he's texting and sending the video to another buddy back in California during all of this. And they're raping her, and she's completely passed out. They're trying to hide because there's a surveillance camera in the hallway of the dorm, and you see two of them put their towels over their heads, and they go through the hallway, and then you see a towel flip up over one of the cameras, and later on that towel falls down. They eventually take her back to her own dorm, and all she knows is she wakes up, she doesn't know any of this has happened to her. And she doesn't know it until several days later when finally the cops show her the video. And during that time, she's still seeing Vandenberg. And he tells her nothing. And that's this horrific case. So Brandon Vandenberg, Corey Beatty, Brandon Banks, and Jaborian McKenzie are all charged with aggravated rape, aggravated sexual assault. Vandenberg has additional charge of doing the recording and the taking of the photos. But only so far, Vandenberg and Corey Beatty go on trial. And in January of 2015, they're both convicted of the rape and the sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, and Vandenberg got the additional charge of the recording. A bunch of us watched that trial. So it was live streamed, and we saw it. Let's see, which one? Jaborian Tip, he's called, McKenzie testified against the two of them at that trial. Brandon Banks has not been heard from, okay? Jaborian McKenzie and Brandon Banks, although charged, have never been to trial. A couple of other players were charged with lesser, and they've kind of been pleaded out, and not much has gone on with them. Okay, so the two biggies that were convicted in January of 2015. But guess what? We have a jury problem. Just talked about Dippolito. And in June of 2015, now the two guys are serving their time in prison. I will say Brandon Vandenberg has never said a word. He didn't testify at trial, and he's never given an interview. So we've never heard from him. So we don't know if he's remorseful. We don't know anything about him. Just denies the whole thing. But Corey Beatty testified. And you can say he's faking it. A lot of people don't believe him. I believe he's remorseful. Doesn't excuse him. He's guilty. He's going to serve his time. But at least I bought that he has some remorse. He says he doesn't remember a lot of that night. And then he also did, after he was in prison, he did a Dr. Phil interview. And I also saw remorse there. Could be me. Maybe I'm buying something that's not there. But I saw that he feels bad about what happened. Vandenberg's never said a word. I don't know if he has any remorse. So in June of 2015, big scandal. The foreman of the jury, turns out he didn't disclose during jury questioning that he was a victim of statutory rape when he was a teenager. Now, he's a male and he's gay, and so he says it was consensual, but he was like 15 or something, and the guy was older, like 19 or something, and then the parents got involved, so it was statutory rape, but it went to court, and he was the victim and all of that, but he didn't disclose it on the jury questionnaire, and you have to do that. You have to. So you can't be on the jury of a rape trial if you are listed in a court case as a victim of a rape. Because of that, they get a new trial. And this jury foreman went on a whole media tour after this case, and his face was all over the media. And the guy that was convicted of the statutory rape saw that, and he went public. And that's how this case got overturned. So now Brandon Vandenberg and Corey Beatty get a new trial. And we start all over again. And the victim, this poor girl, testified at the first trial. She had to watch that whole video of herself getting violated. She sat in the front row and she took it. By the way, she's come out. I'm not showing her picture or giving her name, but the media has, because she's now become an advocate for sexual assault. And she's given interviews, and she's very brave. And she's going to testify at this next trial too. So the jury selection starts March 30th, just next week, and the trial starts April 4th. So we're expecting that to live stream. We're expecting to show that and cover that. But here is an interesting little side note to this case. Brandon Banks and Jaboria McKenzie, who are very much guilty, as far as I'm concerned, they're still charged. There's been no plea deal officially. They have not gone to trial. Even after the other two were convicted, their cases have still never gone to trial. There's been no plea deal. There's been no official plea deal on paper. What is going on with those two? Now, on the docket, those two have a pretrial status conference the same day, April 4th, that the other two have a trial in the same court. How's that working? But I will tell you this, and I'll only tell you this because it was told to me on public radio. So all the listeners heard this. But Fletcher Long, who used to be Brandon Vandenberg's attorney for this rape case, he has a radio show now, and I was on his radio show reporting on a different case, and we briefly talked about this case, and he said on the radio that those two are never going to go to trial. And he says those two are given some kind of deal to testify against these other two, and it's all being kept a secret. That's what he said, but nobody knows about it, and those two, I don't think those two are going to be held accountable. I don't know what's happening with them. But why would they have never gone to trial? There's no reason for that. And even after the other two are convicted, how is nothing happening? And Banks has never testified. So I can see giving them a deal if you agree to testify. But Banks, I don't know. I don't get it. We'll see what happens with those two. Oh, I was going to show you some pictures of all the people that are involved here, in case you guys can't remember who's who and what's going on. Okay. So on the left is Corey Beatty, and on the right is Brandon Vandenberg. Okay, and I have the other two that I am very curious about. Right here is Okay, so Jabori and Tip McKenzie's on the left and Brandon Banks is on the right. And McKenzie on the left is who testified at the first trial. So I don't know what's going on with those two. Okay, so Jan sent me a message and says, the docket says for Banks and McKenzie on April 4th, it says discussion. So it's not a pretrial hearing or anything like that. It's a discussion for those two. So whatever the heck that means, that is what's happening on the 4th for those two. All right, so let's see what kind of comments you guys have. Comment from Chris. Oh, fifth one, Chris Boyd pleaded guilty to criminal attempt to commit accessory after the fact and was dismissed from the team, but not the university. Right. And Chris Boyd is who Vandenberg sent the video to, and then they had a lot of text back and forth about deleting video and deleting text, and I think that's what went on between those two. Jan John says, I still not can believe this is a redo. And she says, privileged to the max. Oh, Vandenberg. You do get that sense from him, although he's never spoken, right? He didn't take the stand. He's never given an interview. You just kind of get the feeling of that, because through his attorney, he's never taken any kind of accountability. And like I said about Corey Beatty, you know, I don't want to give him a pass because he did horrible things to her. And but he's taken accountability. So I want to at least give him something. You know, he got up on the stand and he does say that he blacked out and he does not remember that night. And I don't know how much of that I believe. I do actually believe you black out when you get so drunk. That, you know, that happens. But you know, his mom has worked at Vanderbilt University for like whatever they said, with like 25, 30 years. He's not privileged at all. They're very poor. And he like had a single mom, and he only got a scholarship to Vanderbilt. He put his football, and he got in there through his mom, who I felt so horrible for his mother. I felt so horrible for Corey Beatty's mom that this happened. You know, it's hard to feel horrible for him, but at least he took accountability, and I think they'll be convicted again. They're not going to get off on this, and Corey Beatty is going to spend his time, and he's going to pay the price. But at least he can say he was sorry, and at least she heard that from him. I don't think Vandenberg's ever going to say that. At least I'll be shocked if he does. Okay, what else do we have here? Jan John. Hadn't Vandenberg powdered her up that night? Oh, there was talk, that's right, about the drink. Well, I don't think they could ever prove that a drug was put in the drinks. But there was something about, wasn't there something about the blue drinks? There was something about, she remembers a blue drink. Am I confusing that with a different case? Maybe I'm confusing that. But there is something about, because that's how she passed out so much, that she doesn't believe she drank that much, and she was out like a light. But I don't think that was ever proven. So that'll be interesting to look for again during this trial. And someone asked in the chat room again when it was. Jury selection begins March 30th and the trial starts April 4th. I hope they stream it. Maybe they won't stream it again because they already did it once, but it's a big deal there because it's Vanderbilt University. So I would expect them to stream it. I hope so. We need a good case to follow. Although this is a sad one, and it actually makes people really angry. Oh yeah, Jan says right, the blue drink. Yeah, I think that's what it was. That she does remember. She doesn't have any memory past a certain point in that night, but she does remember a blue drink, and it's like one of her last memories. So they talked about, but I think there was no way to test it because you remember several days went by because she didn't know anything had happened to her. And the other thing is, the unit, they may never have picked up on any of this because she didn't know anything had happened to her, and everybody had kept quiet. But the university security was investigating something else that happened at the dorm, not related to this. And they were going through their security footage when they saw what had gone on. with the boys and the towels over their head, and then all of a sudden taking pictures of this girl in the hallway. That's how they got caught. Then they started going through the phones and all that. That's how this all came to light, because she didn't know that anything had happened to her. Oh, another thing, which is kind of gross to talk about. The only reason Vandenberg didn't assault her that night, and he just kind of filmed it all, because I guess you could hear the guys laughing in the background, is he was too drunk and he couldn't get it up. So he didn't have, I don't think he touched her. I could be wrong, but I don't think he physically touched her, which was always his attorney's argument. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that, because it's, you know, it's been over a year, but I think that was the argument. Can't remember if he did or not. But I think it was Banks that urinated on her. Nothing's happened to him so far? I don't know. Ticks me off. Okay. Thank you guys. Linda, CC, be sure to let your mom know when she can take your earmuffs off. I know, Mom, you might want to skip this whole show. Sorry. This line of work deals with some pretty creepy people. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys. Oh, we also have April 11th starts Justin Ross Harris, hot car death in Georgia. And we will have Phil Holloway on site reporting on that, and that'll be awesome. I'm going out of town tomorrow. I get to have a little vacation with the kids on spring break, so I'll be gone into the end of next week. And I want to thank you guys for hanging in there. We haven't had a lot of stuff streaming, which is why we have the man in the tree. But, you know, it's feast or famine, so we're going to have some cases coming up, and then we'll have too much to watch, and you guys will have to just watch archives. So thanks again. This was another great Court Chatter Live, and I'm Kathy Russin from CourtChatter.com, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.